So this is Crackdown 1.
Yeah.
Why are you showing me Crackdown 1?
This is running on Xbox One X. This is the enhanced version in 4K. So, you know, I played Crackdown 3 recently. I got some single player and some multiplayer under my belt. I really want to talk about multiplayer, but the thing that was nagging me about single player was it's just like Crackdown 1, which, hear me out, I know is what people are asking for. It's what I hope for going into it. But there's two reasons why I'm disappointed. So if I'm honest, this footage isn't terribly different from what we're seeing here of Crackdown 3.
I don't know. You're talking about like visual style, right?
Visual style, I think, you know, for all the things visual style entails, yes. And I'm not saying that necessarily like it's bad looking,
right?
But it's hardly different, like
it's indistinguishable in many ways.
Yeah, maybe there's some like bloom lighting effect going on here, some like, you know, like there's some stuff happening that wasn't possible on the 360 and I don't think was implemented in the Xbox One X backwards compatibility version of the original.
Right.
But I feel like I'm in the same city, kind of looking at the same stuff, shooting robots this time instead of people.
Is it a thing of like art style, not necessarily like the comic book outline kind of style, but the way in which the world is like built and presented?
For all those reasons, it feels like I am playing the first game again, right? And when I, you know, pop back and I start looking at this, I'm kind of reaffirmed in that feeling. Which, right, going back to what I was saying before, that's kind of what I was asking for, right? Like, we all remember Crackdown as being a, you know, honestly, like a really fun power fantasy, right? That escalated. You were leaping up buildings, leaping off buildings, like just doing like the wildest shit. But my other problem with Crackdown 3 single player is that when you start the game, you barely have any of those abilities. And that's to be expected. But it dawned on me that, wow, as much as I want to play where I ended up in Crackdown again, I don't want to play the start of Crackdown again.
Right. I mean, what about like mission structure though? Because the thing is, the thing that you're talking about is like, oh, it's almost indistinguishable from Crackdown 1, and you said this earlier, is that maybe that's what kind of people are looking for.
Right.
And maybe that's also kind of what I'm looking for out of Crackdown single player.
Sure.
But the thing that I want is, you know, it could be, they could ask you an objective, say, destroy 5 of these damn things or whatever. But if it's built in a way that makes me cleverly utilize my unique abilities to get to that point, to complete those objectives, I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking for in the single player. But
I didn't see anything that you're hoping for.
Oh, why?
They put me at the start of the game, and it's basically like, you're a nobody, you're just a cop, right? And hey, here's this city full of crime that's happening, and people that are trying to like take over a district. So just go out there and find people and pick up icons, and everything I went to was literally just like mini strongholds all over the place.
Oh. Did you not get any like midpoint in the game?
So they put me about, I don't know, I would guess halfway through the game, but like even there really isn't much of a story to tell. It's basically like you go to a district, you encounter a new gang, and they're like, okay, this gang is part of this, you know, crime syndicate or whatever.
Gang. When I was looking at the map though, it looks like that traditional open world structure where it's like complete 5 of these missions and then a big boss will pop up, and that's how you you will activate an event in that region, and then you take care of that event and you've cleared it and now that's your territory or whatever. Is it more of that, like territory control style?
Yeah. And you know, you're basically free to go where you want and find those territories you want to take over. I will say one thing that's nice is that you're no longer, you know, fighting against racial stereotypes. You're fighting against, like, I think here it's a group of, sorry, environmentalists, but I think environmentalists.
Oh no.
Or maybe not. Maybe just people who are like trying to do stuff with.
Is this the one where they're trying to mine like some kind of new substance or whatever?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like some kind of drug that they're gonna source or something. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, all super important details. I can't wait to find out. But
so you're a narc in this game. You're a cop. Still a cop. Oh man. But crime is bad. It depends on what kind of crimes.
Yeah.
So you don't feel motivated to kind of, at least from what you saw, you don't feel motivated to like, I need to crack down on these fools, or, because that's also a driving force as much as, you know, as much as using these abilities and causing destruction is, I think we've gotten to the point where there's extra motivation expected to be pulled from you when it comes to story, or at least
open world
like
games,
the characters.
Yeah, your place in an open world has much more meaning now than it did back
in 2007.
Yeah, and again, you're a cookie cutter nobody. The intro sequence is a bunch of, hoorah, like we're gonna go out there, we're gonna stop some crime, like blah, 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 Terry Crews vamping and stuff, and like, that's all well and good, and then it's just like, okay, agent, you're out in the field, and it's like, I felt this overwhelming sense of deja vu, and it was like, that's not what I want, and I'll tell you what I do want, and maybe what set single player up for disaster in my experience was multiplayer. Which was immediately awesome, showing me not even just like what Crackdown is capable of in terms of the concept that we all think about, but the fact that it's running in the cloud enables it to have full destructibility, and that just like completely changes how you use those powers. You were talking about, I want missions that give me a way to use my powers in some, in a new context, right? For new reasons and with new purpose. That's multiplayer. Yeah. So I didn't see any of that in single player.
Yeah, a lot of people like to rag on the phrase, the power of the cloud, but I feel like talking to you about the multiplayer is that it's actually put to use. This is actually a thing that changes the way in which the game plays.
Yep.
So, but why is that? Like, what's the setup for multiplayer, and why is destruction like impacting the way you play?
So they put us in this one stage, which is called like the Hall of Champions or something like that. And
some bullshit.
Yeah, but it's essentially a thing with like huge verticality, lots of like open awnings on the side of buildings and stuff, and there's a lot of launch pads as well. So as you are doing things like hitting a launch pad, you can use your rocket launcher and blow your way through a building and fly through it in midair. Okay. You can get the jump on an enemy that you know is on the other side.
Okay,
let me get this footage pulled up real quick.
All right.
So look at how tall this map is.
you feel small in relation to the environment, which is something I like a lot in open world kind of games where you want to cause destruction and move around very fast.
But this isn't an open world, really. This is just a map.
Right, yeah.
And now, granted, adjusting to what this does in multiplayer took some time, so my footage probably isn't the best. But there are some things made to help you out. Like, you have a pretty good idea of where an enemy is because they're within a certain distance. You can tag them and lock on. You can even see them through buildings, which is crucial given that firing through a building can sometimes be the best way to hit somebody, like with splash damage, for example. And so as our matches, kept going, everyone started to get a bit better and a bit more frantic, and I just couldn't wait to get back into the next match when one ended. Like, I wished they were twice as long. Like, it just felt so different from anything else and so fun. And to support all of this destructibility, Microsoft's cloud stuff, like, they were telling me that there's about the power of 12 Xbox Ones, like the launch model, per instance of this multiplayer running.
Yeah, because the way in which it works, if you're not familiar with the cloud or whatever, it's that it delegates physics calculations to systems off-site, so you can have this huge scale destruction that's not putting so much pressure on your local hardware.
Yeah, it's parallel computation.
Yeah, right? And that makes something like this very possible, which is exclusively in multiplayer. So you don't get that kind of scale of destruction in single player.
No, and so I'm doing stuff like this, right? I'm flying through the air, I'm shooting my way through buildings, I'm like, destroying my opponents in ways I never really have in a multiplayer game before. And then they just plop me into single player. Yeah. And it's
okay.
You're a powerless dude. Here you go.
There's a strong. It feels like talking to you and watching, even just watching the footage alone. There's a strong juxtaposition between what you're capable of in both single player and multiplayer, and that kind of, in a way, like playing the single player or playing multiplayer, kind of dilutes the awe that you would have gotten from playing the open world single player stuff.
It illustrates how old school the single player really is, right? And I know that's what people want. Again, I thought I wanted that too. I'm sure people in the comments are going to say whatever about me, but seriously, I went there excited to see that again. And then after playing this, I was like, I didn't really know what I wanted. And I don't know if I could have ever put my finger on this being the thing.
Yeah, the multiplayer aspect.
Yeah.
And in a way, like multiplayer kind of showcases this is how Crackdown can exist in the current generation.
Yeah.
And then when you have a single player that's very old school, that's like, oh man, like what if you use some of the great things that you did in multiplayer and applied those to single player, and that kind of, I guess that's not happening.
No.
Or it's not coming through, at least.
Unfortunately, and I only played, I'd say, about 90 minutes of the single player campaign.
Okay,
yeah. Maybe that could open up and do a lot more stuff.
Right.
I don't know, but I dare say I'm not going to bother to try to find out. Maybe I'll wait for someone to tell me that, like, oh yeah, the game gets really good
after 20 hours.
Well, no, I mean, even like if it's like after an hour, like this thing, or 2 hours, this thing opens up that you couldn't see coming from the beginning.
Right.
Cool. There totally is that potential, but the moment I get my hands on this game, this is all I'm going to want to engage with. So there's still lots we need to learn. The game comes out February 15th. It's really not that far away.
Crackdown 3 is real.
Yeah, right? It was announced in, what, 2014?
Yeah.
Like a long time ago, and it was just called Crackdown, and maybe appropriately so. So yeah, I'm really curious to see how people are going to react to this, to the original game, and what that, you know, honestly, what it's going to mean for cloud gaming. I think, like so many people, I find myself thinking about cloud gaming like, yeah, it's a nice thought, but like, come on.
I want to see it in action. I want to see it do something that's different.
Or like, I didn't even believe that it would be,
right.
that it would be strong enough and compelling enough for me to say, like, maybe I don't need dedicated hardware. Maybe I want to just have something that plays in the cloud. And this gives me more confidence. Like, granted, I need an Xbox One X or PC to play this based on the cloud. But you know, we're looking at the future where streaming devices are going to be getting smaller and smaller, integrated into things. And if this is what's capable given today's internet and with Microsoft's infrastructure, granted, they're one of the biggest with their Azure, like, you know, server structure, but still, like, it's a model to follow.
It's a good showcase of what it's capable of.
And I'd love to see where it can take gaming for developers and for us as consumers who are always looking for new ways to play and experience games.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's coming up. I hope I haven't diminished your excitement.
No, it's all good. I've been trying to keep up with whatever preview coverage has come out of Crackdown 3, because it's been weird in that I don't feel like it's being made that big of a deal,
right.
Even though it's a Microsoft exclusive. Even though we've been, like, a lot of people have been waiting for this for years, it still feels like, oh, it's coming out in a couple weeks. Yeah. Like, really? Like,
and my hunch is maybe that's because they know the single player isn't going to really get anyone's attention for long. And they're probably wary of being like, hey, the cloud, because I think like me, like I was describing, we're not ready as a group to really just accept the cloud for what it is. I think there's a lot of doubt, there's a lot of questions, and for Microsoft to like downplay the game, they're going to let it speak for itself.
Okay, cool. That's what's up.
I'm good. That's what's up. That's what's up.
Hello? Oh, it's Crackdown 3. Hi, Crackdown 3.